This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen.
3, 2, 1. And welcome everybody to this episode of Coming Home with John Allen. I am your humble but excited host, John Allen. Before we get started, I want to remind you that if you're listening on a podcast platform or if you're watching on YouTube, if you look in the episode description, you'll see several links that you can click into to support the work that I do for you, but also for myself. I just love this, and I really appreciate your support. Now, Lisa Strømme. Hi.
Hi.
Quite the excitement on my part.
No.
I have to give a shout out immediately to Jeff Wasserman, and it's his fault.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
I saw he posted that you, a friend of his, you have this book coming out, and that resonated with me because I'm in the writing process right now for my first book. Mm-hmm. And what also resonated is just Jeff he's just a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
And I figure anyone that he gives a shout out to, they must be a good person. So
nice.
Nothing but good vibes for you, and it's all Jeff's fault. But thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, You're just a few days away from your book release.
Yeah.
Tell me about
like
this.
Like a week
now,
away.
How does that feel?
It feels so good because...
That sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah,
you know?
I actually finished this book about 3 years ago.
Tell us the name first.
It's called The Hall of the Mountain King.
There it is,
And
for everybody watching.
Yeah. Oh,
beautiful cover. Beautiful.
Nice.
Very well done.
Yeah.
The Hall of the Mountain King. Now, I hear a little bit of fairy tale mysticism. Yeah, you know. Is it that Mountain King?
Yes.
Yes.
It is that Mountain King. Yeah.
Now, yeah. I don't like to ask artists, where do you get your ideas from?
Yeah.
But there must be a very significant source of inspiration for this.
Yes. My first book, The Strawberry Girl, was about Edvard Munch and about his art.
My favorite artist.
Yeah. And
fascinating.
I loved that. And I realized I was probably quite well placed to write about him as an observer with a different perspective, from the UK, and living in Norway. I was kind of close to it, but not Norwegian. So
but that geographical thing, you're kind of like me then. When you got here, you started, okay, let me find out about Norway. I don't want to just be here. I want to immerse myself. Is that kind of
that? I mean, when I first moved here, I was pregnant with my second child. So I had a little girl and I was pregnant with my son. So I was just really busy getting on with all of that. And I found people like Edvard Munch and cultural stuff, it's there in the background, obviously always. And I think it just kind of went in through some sort of osmosis. I didn't go looking for it. It was just kind of there. He's on the money sometimes. He's like...
Well, see, Munch did something for me long before I met my Norwegian wife.
Right.
There's just something about his work that was just different. It stood out.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Then it just was an extra cool thing about living here once I came here.
Yeah, that he was part of it.
Yeah,
I know, and I think for me it was when the Scream sold. I can't remember when even now. Maybe it was 2011, and it was for some kind of record-breaking, like $120 million or something.
It wasn't like 140 something million, something like that. Crazy amount.
Crazy amount, especially when you consider what it is. It's on a piece of cardboard, and it has like bird poo all over it, and it's for what that is, the amount of money, and I think that kind of woke me up a lot to him. And I was like, why?
But isn't that the beauty of art? It doesn't have to be this fancy, square, firkant, as they say here, this square thing that fits into a pattern. No. It can be something as crazy as a piece of cardboard with bird poop on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because he was like one of the first artists ever to really express himself emotionally in his painting. Yeah. And so he wanted...
It's quite psychological, his process. Absolutely.
He wanted his paintings to be alive like we are, so he would leave them outside. That's why it's got bird shit on it, because he left it outside. He wanted the rain on them. He wanted them to sort of live and breathe and change the way we do. Yeah. And so, he was really sort of revolutionary, really, in the process. So...
what year did he paint that?
He painted the first version of the Scream in 1893.
1893, then there are several versions afterwards.
I think there's about 4 or 5 different versions.
I wonder I've always wondered what made him continue painting that.
Well, maybe
Why?
It's this... evolution, this whole change, these ideas, and also different mediums. I mean, some of it is in paint, some of it is in like...
It's the medium. So he probably got stimulation each time he did it. It was a new like insight.
I mean, he was so creative. He was prolific. But I think it came at a cost for him in that he couldn't really have relationships. He couldn't really give his life to anything else.
The price of art creation. Yeah. It kind of, at the same time as it opens doors, it can also isolate one.
Oh, yes.
I'm thinking about, and we're going to get into this, the whole writing process, but at this point in my writing process, I'm almost daily recognizing that I'm losing contact with friends, people who I care about, but because I'm into this process and I have to listen to the muse. When she calls, I've got to listen.
Right.
And when she calls, sometimes that means I have to ignore the calls, literally the telephone calls from friends and whatnot. Yeah. Do you experience that?
Yeah, sort of. I mean...
Or are you better than me? Are you able to partition? Because I feel
no
like
better.
I feel like I'm lacking some kind of organizational skills.
I think that's the thing.
Did you feel that at all?
Once I made the commitment, once I got my first got my agent, then I think I decided, right, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And then I structured my day, because I have family and everything, and couldn't just disappear. I structured my day so that I work from 9 till 1 every day. And that's it. And during that time I'm working. But I have had phases where it's really been intense and I haven't spoken to friends for months, and I've just been really going for it. But I learned after a while, because it affects your health, it affects everything if you only feed the art.
I've only recently found my solution to that social thing that kind of deteriorates, and that is to tell my friends why. Mm-hmm. And I found out that, I'm so glad I told him or told her that this is the reason why I haven't been around. Yeah. I had a good friend who had a release concert last night for his album, and I had to call him and say, man, I just can't make it. I'm tired. Yeah. I have a podcast in the morning, and,
it's all my
and I have
fault.
to. Yeah, it's all shame on you. Yeah. No, but I found that rather than just stressing about whether or not the friends are offended or worried or wondering or angry, I just tell them, and it's like, oh, okay, man, that's cool, and things are fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think you find that the good ones stay anyway. It doesn't matter.
Well, isn't that the truth? Yeah, real friends will understand. Well, real friends know what you're doing in the first place. You don't have to explain.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
So they'll stick around.
So the Hall of the Mountain King.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, it's similar to your first book because it's you who wrote it. And yet this is something different. Yeah. I got a chance to see the first 3 chapters. This is different than your first book. Yeah. Can you tell me about that? Why is it different? Do you feel it's different? Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, I do. They're very similar. I think they're like brother and sister in a way.
Yeah.
They're different because of the artistic medium. The first one, I mentioned it because it was about art, painting. The artistic medium in this one is music. Yeah. So, and also they are set in different locations. Yes. So the dramatic mountains, that whole, it's different to the beach.
It really creates an image.
Yeah.
The way you've written this, at least from what I've seen so far, it really creates an image. And again, with this beautiful cover, this kind of
spot the troll.
It kind of puts things. See, now you shouldn't have told them. You shouldn't have told. No, take a look at this cover. There's I don't want to say a hidden message, but it's quite the abstract image to where the challenge is out there to look at it and see what you see. Mm-hmm. I'll zoom in on a close-up and we'll see what people say about this. The Hall of the Mountain King. Okay. Yeah. Music. Are you a musician? Or where did this music...
I love music.
You're a music lover.
I wouldn't say yes. Yeah. I mean, I used to sing a little bit. My daughter's a musician. She sings. She's a singer. It's a massive part of my makeup. Music always has been. So having investigated Munch and art, I think that it was a natural step to find another creative cultural figure in Norway, and music. I love it so much that Grieg seemed to be a kind of obvious choice.
When I think of Norwegian music, Norwegian with capital letters, Norwegian music, I can't help but think of Grieg.
Yeah. Yeah.
His work to me is the definition of Norway.
Well, he traveled. Well, did he travel? He went around. He found folk music and was inspired by that. And in the same way, I suppose, as like Asbjørnsen and Moore would have found folk stories and written them down. And so his music did have a lot of, folk inspired stuff. Yeah.
It's I see a lot of imagery in his music, kind of like it is with your book. It just creates this image of Norway. You know, the fjords, the mountains, the snow, the trolls, the woodlands.
Yeah, well, he was commissioned.
It's in his music.
Yes, very much. And in this particular, I suppose this book is very much influenced by Per Gynt.
Yeah.
I can't say Peer Gynt. I have to teach myself how to say it wrong.
Say it 1,000 times daily. You'll get it.
I mean, it just once you know the way it's pronounced, you just can't go back.
How is your Norwegian though?
It's fine. Yeah, it's
Do
fine.
do you speak it at home?
No.
You're like me.
No.
When I in these four walls, I have to breathe out, lower my shoulders, and be myself, and I can't do that when I speak Norwegian.
I would never have dreamed of speaking Norwegian to my kids. And when I got to know my husband, we got to know each other in English. I couldn't speak Norwegian then. So
same thing.
It's almost like when I look at his face, it's English I speak.
When I met Snoopy, we met in Chicago, so we were speaking English. And then when we moved here, after we got married, we lived there for a couple more years and moved here, and then tried to speak Norwegian so that I could learn, and it just was weird.
It's too weird.
Like, who is this woman babbling at me? That's not why I'm married.
And also, I have this big thing where I don't feel like myself in Norwegian.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to be myself, and I'm quite fluent. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
I love the language. It's a beautiful thing, but I can't be 100% John Allen when I'm speaking it. And it's such a strange thing how connected we are to language.
I know, it's really funny. I don't feel I can fully be myself, and I think a lot to do with like humor and nuances and the British humor.
Well, I do my stand-up comedy routine in English.
Stand-up comedy? Oh my God, I have to see that.
Oh, it's different than this. I'll tell you that. But I never even considered doing it in Norwegian.
No.
Again, I have to be myself.
And also, it wouldn't translate.
Well, the poetry of the languages is so different, and it wouldn't translate. You know, I have these thoughts, and they're in English, and how do I put that into Norwegian? No. The thought would be something else by the time it came out of my mouth.
I think that would be impossible. I always marvel at like Eddie Izzard, who's one of my comedy heroes, when he does his show in French. And I think he's tried it in German, and
it's quite fascinating.
How? You know, I'm sure it's still really hilarious because he's.
Well, that's a true artist right there. That's a professional who's able to do that. Well, maybe professional is the wrong word. I mean, he is a professional, but there's something in that thought process, that creative process, if you're able to pull that off in several languages.
God, yeah.
So hats off.
Amazing.
I couldn't do it. I could
just
never.
feel in Norwegian, your mouth changes shape so much. You've also got to think about it in a way, like the E and the
E and and O.
It's
Do that again. No, it is I think, and I've thought about this, that I think the way your mouth has to change shape, because you look different, it makes you feel different.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought.
Yeah.
I think that that's the case for me anyway. But if I say hi, or if I say hey, you see what happens with my face? Two totally different faces, and that's a different guy.
Yeah,
that's a different guy altogether.
I think you have to be here and have gone through what we've gone through, I suppose, to understand all these little intricacies.
What have you gone through? What was that process like? What was that process like for you coming from? Where exactly are you from? What city?
I'm originally from West Yorkshire in England.
West Yorkshire.
And then I moved to Scotland when I was 10. So I've been in Glasgow for many years before I came here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you told me that over the phone.
Okay, yeah.
But I don't hear any of the Scottish in your
some people do. I'm a bit like...
Maybe it'll come out from time to time.
I feel that like Henry Higgins would have a field day with me trying to figure out where exactly does she come from.
It's...
I suppose you get a kind of international voice when you've moved around a lot like I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you met your husband... We
met in Glasgow.
In Glasgow.
At university, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it one of those love at first sight things? I can't wait to move to Norway with this guy.
Oh no!
Was it a long? I
don't mean that in a negative way. I was actually together with his flatmate, and so
really?
Yeah, that was awkward.
Hey, hats off to you, man! You worked your way in.
Finished with
He had
him.
a plan, huh?
Yeah.
Or did you have a plan?
I didn't. I really didn't.
I'm being mean now.
No, it's fine. So I think we were friends for a while before we actually got together. And I mean, I wouldn't say that I didn't know where Norway was, but I didn't know a hell of a lot about Norway.
Same here.
And
I didn't know much about it at all. No.
And he'd studied a long time ago. He'd spent a year in Texas.
Yeah.
So when I met him, he was like, really, y'all, how y'all doing? I just thought he was American, you know.
So he really picked up.
He was really Texan.
That's what Texas does to one.
Yeah. But again, not anymore. He sort of lost that a bit now. Yeah. But anyway.
Good.
Yeah. I thought he was American, and then obviously got to know him and then got to know more about Norway then, but I didn't really know much.
Norway, to me, it's charming. Some people, other Americans in Norway, for example, talk about it as an irritating thing about being here in Norway. But Norwegians have this, what I think is a charming, I guess it can be annoying, where they build up the significance, the influence, the importance of Norway on an international basis.
Right.
Norway's not that big of a country. Norway isn't really a hands-on country when it comes to international politics.
No. I haven't actually experienced that, what you just said.
Well, doing this podcast and at times talking about politics, I'm fascinated by what some Norwegians can say about the influence that Norway has on an international basis. And it's very interesting. But then I can apply the same thing to my countrymen in the United States, where they have a tendency, you see, I've separated myself, they have a tendency.
I'm not one of them.
America is the leader. America is the nation.
Yeah.
But I tell you, perspective has a lot to say about those things. Stepping away and being here for 20 years and looking back home, I see a different America.
Oh, yeah, you will do.
Do you do the same thing with
the UK?
England, UK, Great Britain?
Yes, because the country's changed so much, obviously. But I think a little bit about what we were talking about on the phone. Like, I have a romantic memory image of my childhood.
That's right. We talked about possibly missing a homeland that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. And some of it does, but other parts of it doesn't exist anymore. But it is very interesting. I find living in a different country and looking back at your home country with the eyes of being here and the way I see it and compared to the way my friends and family see it living there is different. And
well, it's a learning process. Every time I have a conversation I don't really talk politics with anybody back home except for my mother. Mm-hmm. She used to work for the federal government, so she's still she's retired, but she's still kind of plugged in. And we see things differently. Mm-hmm. Again, that perspective is a new perspective.
I don't think you could possibly be an American and live in Norway for as long as you have and not have a different perspective on your country now.
Well, my high school class is having a reunion yesterday and today.
Oh, right.
So they FaceTimed me. They were taking a tour of the new high school that's been built. One of my classmates owns the construction company that built the new high school.
Right.
So they were taking a tour of it and, FaceTime, and I'm seeing friends that I haven't seen in, over 30 years. And it really, I sat up for several hours after that. This was like at 11 o'clock at night here, and I sat up till maybe 3 o'clock just reminiscing and thinking about these are the people that I used to play with as a child, and I still remember them as those children, but here they are, they're losing their hair, they're gray, they've gained weight, lost weight, they have families and kids, and they have 30-some years of American experience that I don't have.
Yeah.
So who am I missing? What am I missing? It's all a memory. There's something poetic, slightly sad about that, but it's a reality. It's very interesting to think on it.
It's just nostalgia, isn't it? And I think the older you get, you're more drawn back to those things.
I think so. And I think that's a healthy thing.
Yeah. I
introspection.
Think
it leads to introspection. Yeah. It leads to, kind of charting your path. Where have I changed? How much have I grown or not?
Yeah, exactly. It does. And also to see how much of, in me anyway, is still very much UK, British, the humour, the
Have you picked up Norwegian citizenship?
I'm in the process.
You are? Okay.
Yeah, which takes, by the way, 2 years.
I have thought off and on about doing that, but there's this identity thing that says, no, don't do it.
I did it because of Brexit.
Well, yeah, and the reason why I'm thinking about it more is because now we can have, as Americans, we can have dual citizenship.
Yes.
That wasn't the case before.
No, me too. So I can have dual now.
Yeah, and it kind of opens up, again, perspective. It opens up a new viewpoint of possibilities.
Yeah. It was quite astonishing for me recently when I was going to the UK and I had to join the huge queue of people from all over the world and I couldn't just go through with my husband anymore.
Yeah.
And the family gets split up. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to do the citizenship.
That is a weird feeling at those airports, those big international airports, and you go to this line and they go to that line. It's like, am I ever going to see them?
I know.
We traveled in, I'm trying to think of the last time we all traveled, 2015. Mm-hmm. So this was still the aftermath, very much the aftermath of 9/11 with the strict security. Oh. And I remember a little pull of anxiety on the heartstrings there when we had to separate into those different lines at the airport in New York.
I know, God.
And it's just...
especially going into the U.S.
Well, yeah, and I'm thinking if they know everything about my wife that I know, she ain't getting in. I tease because I love. Okay, let's just say it.
Yeah. Aww. Yeah.
You'll meet her afterwards. Poor thing, she worked a night shift. She was supposed to be off last night, and they called her.
What does she do?
She's a psychiatric nurse.
Oh, wow.
Quite a good one. I have to brag on her. She's responsible for, way back in 2003, the setting up of one of the premier security units for psychiatry in Norway. Wow. So she's been doing it for a long time. She loves it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So they called her, and we had gotten rid of the kids. You know, they were both spending the night at friends. Yeah. It's like, okay, this is our evening, first time in a long time. And then the phone rang when we sat down to watch a film.
Oh, that's typical.
And we kind of looked at each other and we're both, okay, get the money.
Oh, yeah. There's always that choice.
There'll be other evenings.
Yeah. Oh.
But isn't romance important? You got to keep it alive.
Yeah. I find.
We didn't keep it alive yesterday. We tried,
no.
but that, you know, I don't know how old your kids are.
They are almost 20.
Oh God. Okay.
And 21.
Okay, we started late, so we have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, but it's quite a relief to get through those rough years when they're younger, when they demand so much attention. And now we're kind of discovering what it's like to have moments like the moment we should have had last night. But we do that very often now where it's just us. Yeah. We couldn't do that for so many years. Yeah. Do you have a lot, or does your husband have a lot of family in the area?
No.
Yeah, see, we don't have that either. So no babysitters. He's from Tromsø. Okay. What a great city.
Yeah. So no, I mean, actually when my kids were younger, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I just loved every second. I was with them all the time, and
don't get me wrong. I was home with our daughter the first year. My wife, I say it, she gave me that moment, that first year of being home, which you can do here in Norway. Stay home and keep your job, and the most beautiful year of my life. Yeah, but there are certain struggles. You know, when kids are young like that and there is so much attention put on them. Did you experience a new awakening of the romance as they got older? This is a personal question, but that's what we do on Coming Home with John Allen.
No, I find
if I don't make my guest blush, it's not a good show.
I'm red here. Neon.
What's happening with the lighting here.
No, I find it really difficult. My husband works away probably every third week. Dagfinn.
Dagfinn, stop working so much.
He's in Iceland at the moment. He's just been at the Blue Lagoon.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, he's working. So he tells me, but there's always...
The Blue Lagoon, how much work is there to do at the Blue Lagoon in Iceland? Come on, Dagfinn.
And I mean, I always say, God, it's all just one big jolly, you know.
Yeah. Well, but isn't he fortunate to have such a job?
Yeah, he enjoys traveling, and I think he would actually enjoy traveling internationally more. He has in the past. Yeah. So it was very much always me and the kids, and we became like this threesome, I think. And And I wouldn't say he got pushed out. I mean, if anything, he would have loved to have been home, but he was the one working. I had come from a really busy career in Glasgow, and I gave that up to be at home with the kids. And
that is a very interesting subject that I'm very much occupied with, that dynamic, that family dynamic. That's kind of why I started talking about this. When you have that professional life that kind of takes you away, and then a new cabal is set up.
Oh, yeah.
The threesome with you and the kids. And it was the same thing with Snoopy and our two kids for several years. Not so much now because I work from home. But at one point when we were living up north, I owned 3 gyms that were spread out over, all over Troms fylke.
Oh, wow.
That's why I know about Tromsø. I was up there in that area. And Tromsø at that time was almost a 4-hour drive. You know about the long distances up north.
Oh, yeah.
So, to manage all 3 of these places, I was gone. Yeah. And I saw this new dynamic being created. Not that there was any stress in our marriage or anything, but I just saw that there was something that was fading while something else was being built up or enhanced without my involvement.
Yeah. No, I think that's just natural in a way. Really.
It is.
If you have chosen, as we did very deliberately, for one of us to be there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Choices. Yeah. Choices and the consequences therefrom.
Yeah, and because I had come from a job that I originally enjoyed, but then as soon as I had Sophie, I just wanted to be with her, hated it. So we moved to Norway, and then my life just became collecting leaves and making paintings and singing and playing and drawing. And we'd make like totem poles and sing and we just had a fantastic time, me and the kids.
Is that when you got this bug for writing? When did you write the Strawberry?
Oh, that was I started around 2012, I think.
Okay, so this was.
But I'd been writing before that, and I did. Okay. I think I wrote about 3 or 4 novels before that just to learn how to write.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be shocked if people's first novel gets published, and after, you've got to learn your craft.
Because this is not self-published, these works. Or
Mountain King is.
Mountain King is self-published. Okay.
In English.
Okay.
So it's coming up. HarperCollins are going to translate it into Norwegian next year.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So.
I'm just going to say ahead of time, congratulations.
That's
quite the feat. I love it.
Yeah, thanks.
I love it.
I've learned an awful lot about the publishing industry since I wrote The Strawberry Girl.
Well, that translation is a guaranteed broader distribution. That's a battle won immediately right there.
I mean, it's such a Norwegian story. It makes sense to me that it could be accessible to Norwegians. Yeah. So
although Norwegians enjoy reading in English.
They do.
Surprisingly so. For me, surprisingly so.
Yeah, no, they do.
They really embrace that process.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And but obviously for this, my main markets will be UK, US, Australia, New Zealand. Like English speaking.
How involved are you in the business side of things? You have an agent.
Yes.
Of course, you have to be more involved when you're self-publishing. But let's go back to The Strawberry Girl. When do you feel like you lose something when there's other people, this agent having influence, the publisher having an opinion and some influence in decision making? How does that feel?
Yeah, not so much the agent. He doesn't change much. He and I work together for sometimes over a year in editing backwards and forwards to get a manuscript that he feels he can really sell. And sometimes that's not to do with the quality of the writing or the story. It's more about the publishing industry needing it to fit into a specific genre.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of clip it and cut it and shape it and form it so that it will fit right in that genre. And
what does that do to the creative process?
That's annoying.
Yeah.
And so in terms
of... that's why I'm going to self-publish.
I recommend it.
I couldn't imagine me... Well, it's the same thing with my music. I record all my music here, and it's the way I want it to be. I'm my own producer. I play the instruments. Yeah. And if someone were to say, that sucks, John, you got to change that, I think it would crush me, because that's a lot of my passion that I put into that project. Maybe that's a frailty of mine, but if it is, I admit it.
No.
It's
human nature to create something. like the process that I go through with my agent is never like, that sucks, don't do that, ever.
Yeah, I was a bit harsh there.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's what people think, I need to shed a bit of light on.
Well, a good agent is a guide.
He's more asking questions,
right.
and maybe the worst would be, I didn't quite believe that.
Okay.
So you have to go back and then, how can I make this more believable?
Well, a good agent is a good coach, right? He's going to lead he's going to ask those leading questions. Yes, he asks
the questions.
Yeah.
But then they're not your best friend. They're not there to cuddle you and make your life great. He can be quite, I wouldn't say harsh, but just challenging. And, some in the process through previous books, some emails would be like 15 questions. Why is she doing that? Why is he saying this? Why would that happen? And you've really got to think, how can I answer those questions
I have a real good
in a
answer.
Rewrite?
Because that's how I imagined it. Okay, next question. Same answer, because that's how I imagined it.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of this stuff is, like I said, trying to shape it into a specific genre, which can be extremely frustrating. And that's what I found, because I found with A Strawberry Girl, when you talk about control, that went to a publisher and I had zero control over covers. And because it's such an artistic book, I imagined it to be very chunky paint and, really eye-catching. Yeah. And they went for a totally different look, which was fine. I mean, it was pretty and all of that, but it wasn't quite what I imagined.
Right.
And then I found also I was lucky enough for it to get translated into different languages. They all had their version of it. Some I really loved, some that I didn't get. But they all have their different markets, and they feel that they understand them the best.
Well, and they understand these things, but they're not the creator.
No, so
the creator.
You just got to let that go. You eventually realize that's fine.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't actually change so much in the actual story either. So that was okay. But what I've found subsequently is this fitting into a genre thing that I keep going on about. You could write a really good story. I've had some wonderful, like with The Hall of the Mountain King, I actually finished it a long time ago.
Okay.
3 years ago.
Okay.
And I had to think about 12 or 13 rejections that were so lovely I would want them on the back of the book.
Oh, really? A lovely rejection.
Oh, brilliant. This is so moving. She's such a great writer. This is, a really nice thing that you would really want. Yeah. But we feel the market is too narrow, or we don't know where to put it. We don't know.
So that genre has a lot to say with,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, are you afraid then or can you see yourself possibly running into some difficulties then as a self-publisher, that you may make the wrong decision where these experts may have went this way, you go that way because you're in your feelings, you're in your heart as a creator? There's a certain nakedness with the self-publishing route. Am I right?
Kind of, but I think because I've had both. I've been traditionally published, and I've learned.
And you say now you would recommend self-publishing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel this is. I don't want to sound bitter and twisted, and
we do bitter and twisted here on Coming Home with John Allen. We do that as well.
I think you did. I listened to your episode with Jeff, and I think Jeff.
Did you? Okay.
Jeff said something a little bit like this about the music industry.
Yeah.
And the publishing industry, the music industry, these big industries. This is how I see the publishing industry: is that you have writers on one side, and you have readers on the other, and in the middle you have this huge conglomerate that owns everything, and they're almost blocking writers from getting to their readers. So the reason why
I believe it,
I like what I've done with The Hall of the Mountain King is that I've had control, and I've been able to say I've created this thing, and if I hadn't decided to get it out there, it would still be sitting on a file on my computer, and possibly would have been for the rest of my life. But I just dared to do it and said, okay.
You dared to do it. There's a certain pride in your work where you feel that it deserves to be out there, and you're going to make that happen on your own merit.
Yeah.
Every decision is yours.
And since I already had a small readership from The Strawberry Girl, and I'd already been translated into a number of languages, then I suppose that's different than just publishing myself from the very beginning.
Yeah.
but still, I understood them.
That is a good start.
It's a good start.
Being published, especially with the translation on top of it, that is a great start.
It really was.
To jump off into
really
self-publishing.
But it was no guarantee, John.
Absolutely not.
I mean, that's what people don't know out there.
Well, it's a fickle market. You just don't know who's going to want to pick up your book and read it. You just don't know that. You can do everything. You can lay the groundwork so that it's easy for them to find it. Yeah. You're going to write as good as you can. You're going to promote it as best you can. But it's a very fickle market. You can't say that this is the path to a guaranteed success.
No, nobody can do that. It's the same with a hit song or a hit movie. Or nobody knows. Yeah. But I think I was naive in the beginning when I first got, my agent must be one of the top 10 agents in the world. He's amazing. And he represents some really big names. Yeah. And so I just could that was a dream come true.
How'd you find him? Did you just submit a manuscript and then he just latched onto it and there it was?
I just went through the process of, sending, and I sent the first 3 chapters. And the weird thing was I'd sent it, I think, to about 8 or 9 agents. Yeah. And I never heard anything back from A.M. Heath. And I thought, that's probably just, dead duck.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I went back and I went back to their website about 3 or 4 months later, and they said, if you sent a manuscript in at this time, we had a technical hitch, we weren't receiving things, please send it again. Oh, and I did. And 2 weeks later, I had an agent.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so it was
what a great
really
feeling. How did that feel to get, it's kind of like in the music business, not so much now, especially if you're a little bit older, like I am, but for young people, that whole thing, I got a contract, I got a record contract.
Oh, yeah.
Was there any of that? I got an agent.
Oh, I can believe it. I mean, I was 42 and it was like, oh my God, I had to print off the email, give it to Doug Finn and say, is this real? Can you
translate this, please?
Read this to me and tell me, does he mean it? Or is he going to change his mind? I had this
that
feeling
must
like,
have been.
For a few days after, they can't have meant that.
Yeah. That must have been a beautiful feeling. That affirmation that, hey, I'm on the path to something
I
here.
really was, because I'd been working on writing for probably about at least 12 years before that. It wasn't just something that happened instantly. So, yes, but I was so naive because I thought once I'd got the agent and once I got the publisher, that's it. And they will just nurture me and help me become a writer. And I just need to keep writing and that's it. And I was so wrong.
How so? Because I would think, and again, I can relate this to the music business. They sign a 20-year-old artist, they give them this big advance, they get them in the studio, and then they're no longer concerned. The nurturing process is non-existent. Mm-hmm. How does that relate when it comes to the writing business? I don't want you to talk bad, if you don't want to, about the people who were in your writing world, but did you feel nurtured? Did you feel guided? Did you feel welcomed into that writing world?
I did, yes, very much. And I got on really well with them. But where I kind of misunderstood how things were going to play out was I just thought that everything I did from then on, they would take and that they would publish.
I see.
And really what drives everything is money. And so if they weren't 100% convinced they would make a fortune on me, it almost feels like we'll give you one shot and then we'll spit you back out again.
Yeah. And they have people who sit in offices with computers and study online algorithms and sometimes redefine genre and all that stuff to make this stuff fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good.
Okay, that is not me.
Well, that's my son.
Oh, take it.
I just about have to.
Yep.
This is what happens when you do a show at home.
Yeah.
Little things like that.
I would have taken it too.
Yeah, I have to.
Oh, yeah.
Just
when
about
it's your kids,
have to.
When it's your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, and we're back. Through the wonders of technology, that was but a microsecond for those of you listening and watching, but for us, it was a 2-minute adventure, side adventure for me. No, you have to answer the phone when the kids call.
No, you definitely do. Definitely.
We were talking, though, about your initial expectations about how you would be guided, taken care of, how your work would be accepted. Now, I have to ask, was that because of any kind of misdirection or deception? Or was it because you were just a little naive and possibly starstruck? Or was it a combination of
I think
the two?
I was probably just in the same way that people have these preconceptions about, oh, you're a writer, you must be a millionaire now.
Sorry.
I think I just thought, the way it goes is, because it's so hard to get an agent, and I finally did it. Yeah. And I just thought, right, I've done that now. Yeah. This means I'm on my way. Yeah. This means that I can
smooth sailing from here on out.
Yeah. This means I can just be a writer and that's it. And I think my preconception of the industry was that once you'd got a publisher, they nurtured you and they helped you build your readership, your audiences, all of that. And I just sort of naturally assumed that when in reality, they don't have much money to put into promoting you.
Not these days.
No.
Hasn't there been quite the change over the last 15, 20 years? The writing world is just not the profit base that it was.
I think so, yeah. So really the way I see it now is, and again, this isn't to be like bitter and old and twisted and everything, but it does seem to me a little bit as if they go for almost the lowest common denominator so that they can mass market sell, make as much money as they possibly can. And it's leaving really good writers kind of struggling to get to their readers. And that's just the state of our times, really.
And again, I talked about this stuff, as you saw, with Jeff Wasserman when he was here, and how the music industry has become this thing where they're just squeezing as much money as they can out of the artist. Or not. If they don't see money there immediately, they drop the artist, or you don't even get a shot if they don't see the money in you. And that has nothing to do with talent or creativity. It's just the money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think, again, I'm a couple steps behind you in that I haven't even released my first book yet. But from my studies of how the writing world is, the publishing world, it does not encourage me to want to go the traditional publishing route. No. I'm going to self-publish.
I can understand
period.
That.
Done.
How are you writing fiction?
I'm writing, I call it a memoir of sorts.
Right. Yeah.
It's not a memoir in the sense that I'm trying to tell my story to get my story out there. I'm trying to tell a story as seen by me in the hopes that it could help somebody else out there. Now this has come after several people over several years telling me that there was a story there that I should write. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome. I don't know if I just didn't have the focus or if the stars were not aligned properly, but I never really put any effort into it until relatively recently, maybe 6 months ago. Now, I tried. There were several attempts over 10, 12-year period. But it was maybe 6 months ago that I got this real serious desire to write the story, and I'm loving it.
Oh, that's
the battle is won already before I've even released it. I am loving the process. So I'm probably 90% finished with the writing, actually.
Great. Well done.
And thank you. And coming up here in a couple weeks, pre-editing. I'm going to release a subscription where I will read in one chapter at a time every week, and it'll just drip on an audio release, and that's going to go towards funding the hardcover and paperback release.
Right. Yeah.
It's cheap. It's $1 a week.
Yeah.
And people get to hear me read my book before I've edited. Yeah. Basically, I'm writing, recording the audio, and I'll send it out right away.
That's brave.
Well, it's brave, but I love that challenge. Yeah. I'm constantly seeking that challenge, and it's brave. It's very scary, and it may fall flat on its face. People may say, "Well, I'm not going to buy it because this sounds terrible." I don't know. It's gonna be motivating for me. It's gonna make me keep writing because I know people have now subscribed. Mm-hmm. So I've got to keep writing. I can't, I don't know about you, but in that writing process, it's like this. Sometimes I feel like I'm Stephen King. Sometimes I feel like I'm in first grade and can barely make a sentence, but this whole thing with this subscription is going to make me just push through to the end. I'm about 85, I'd say 85% finished with all the writing.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, you don't strike me as being the kind of person that would find it crippling to have that exposure, but I know some people that would find that really challenging. And I think if you're writing a memoir as well, it's not just a piece of fiction. This is like you. You're really putting yourself out there. You're stripping naked.
I am. But there's a therapeutic aspect to this. I think we all, at some point in our lives, whether it's as children or later in our adult years, we experience different forms of trauma several times throughout the course of our life. And for me, this all started when I lost my son to a heroin overdose in November of 2019.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was horrible. It is horrible. I have no idea. I have no idea if I'm dealing with it in a proper way.
Oh, John.
And well, that's the reason why I started this program, because I was, of course, extremely depressed. We were in a completely new stage in our relationship. My wife and I were working to get him here to Norway, get him out of that environment. He was living in the States. So things were looking up, and then he died from an overdose.
Oh, that's absolutely horrific.
So it just yanked the rug out from underneath me. And a couple of months went by, and Snoopy, she's something else. She told me I should find something that can give me inspiration, something that can lift me out of this. And she said, and you should use your voice. I think I talk too much sometimes, but she always tells me she likes to hear me talk. So she said, you should use your voice and you should get on a microphone. Wow. So I started my podcast. Yeah. And I'm looking for people who inspire me, people who motivate me, people who I think I can learn something from. And that process started in March of 2020. He passed in November 2019. I started my show in March. So all of those months from November 2019 to March 2020, I was lower than... I can't even begin to imagine. It does something. It hurts just to think of it, doesn't it? And it's not your son, it's my son. Yeah. So there's something as parents, So that's what I was going through, and this microphone, this process, this series of shows is what pulled me out of it. Mm-hmm. And then through that, I started to realize the benefits of telling my story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just told you one story about losing my son, and it lightens that load for me, at least in the moment. Of course, it can also make me very depressed later. I might be like, oh, gosh, why did I bring it up again? But right now, it feels good to share that, right? When we share our feelings, when we share our trauma, there's a therapeutic effect.
Yeah, I was in a writing class, actually, recently, and the teacher there said, we write to survive.
Oh, don't we?
Yeah, and it's
regardless
very much
of what genre we write. I think.
It's very much that you're talking about. Yeah. And so I read a book. An example I give in my newsletter recently was I read a book by Julian Barnes, who's one of my favorite novelists and writers. And his book begins, would you rather love the more and suffer the more, or love the less and suffer the less? That, I think, is the one true question.
What a beautiful question.
Yeah, and
that's beautiful.
Then it goes on to say, because I'm thinking, because I love so massively, I wonder sometimes if my life would have been easier if I didn't love as much. But then he goes on later to say, you probably realize this isn't a real question, because no one can control how much they love. If you could control it, it wouldn't be love.
Exactly.
And that just resonated with me so much. Yeah. And that's what I mean about it. When something really touches you that you've read. Yeah. That's what writing's all about, is connecting people.
And that's what I'm hoping that my upcoming book can do for people. Now, I do have hopes and dreams of writing fiction eventually. I've got on my phone here is a lot of notes for a lot of crazy stories that I want to tell, fiction. But I feel that I have to get this thing out first. And it all started with this podcast. Yeah. And the radio show, that whole experience of putting my situation out there and telling people exactly why I'm doing my program. It's so therapeutic.
I can imagine, yeah.
So the book writing process is even more therapeutic. So I'm putting that out there, for myself, but I also, I think people may be able to get something out of that book.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I'm not the only one going through this, and I don't have the solution on how to deal with it, but yeah, we're going to put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I'll get up to your level one day. I want to be like you when I grow up.
No, don't say that. No.
We're talking about The Hall of the Mountain King by Lisa Strømme. When's the release date? A few days.
30th of September, so
30th
a week.
of September. This will be
Just
out
about a week,
tomorrow, which is the 25th.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'll be putting this episode out on my podcast on Sunday, the 25th. Yeah. You guys, if you're watching or listening, you've got to go and check this book out. Your website is Lisa Strømme, STROMME, okay, .com.
Yeah.
Go there. That's where you'll find all the information on where to get this. I want this to blow up. I want this to.
Thanks.
This.
Yeah.
So, did you ever feel like you had to stop? Did you ever feel like this wasn't working? Or was it smooth the whole way?
That particular novel, or being a writer?
This one right here.
That was one of the smoothest.
Really?
It was born in about 6 months. It just came right out.
I love it.
Yeah, and I was talking earlier about genre. This is a story about a young girl who suffers a trauma so badly that she ends up going mute. She loses a voice. She can't speak anymore. And it's music and the power of music that helps her learn how to speak again. And it's very much, a lot of it is influenced by Peer Gynt, which is a famous play by Ibsen, which Grieg put the music to. And some of the music to that is very famous. And originally, when I first wrote it, the story is based in 1875 in Hardanger. And that's
beautiful section in Norway, by the way.
Yeah, it's lovely. And that's where Grieg was when he was trying to write this suite of music, struggling to write it. He was there. So the story of the 6 month duration was just her as a 13, 14-year-old coming to terms with puberty and first love and all those things. She wasn't really, she didn't have a mother, she didn't have any sisters. So the only thing she had to go on growing up was folk tales and old wives' tales. Those kind of like stories. And so originally it was just that. And this is the process that I'm talking about with my agent and the editing. And he said, okay, if we go with just that, it could fall into young adult. And we didn't want it to be in that genre. We wanted it to be in a
little bit broader
adult.
Into the adult.
So I then worked in a second story, like a parallel story, which is Dagny, the main character, when she's much older. She's a grown woman. And it's one night where she's singing at a concert and she's having relationship problems in that one night. She's struggling, and really those relationship issues are all very deep set from the time on the mountain when she was a young girl, and it's how that had influenced her as an adult and the struggles that she's going through there. So that process then probably took about another 7-8 months with him going backwards and forwards, putting in this new story. And
would you call that's almost like a total rewrite to plug in a parallel story?
I've written rewrites before. This was an enhancement in a way, because the parallel story where she's an adult is smaller. It's just little fragments that come in every now and again. So the main story was done. That's the stuff on the mountain.
Okay. Yeah. And it all came out originally first in 6 months or so.
Yeah, it came out very
easily.
And
then another 7 months or so for the...
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But they're all different. They're like your children, you know, they come out differently. They are different. Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with songwriting.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited right now. This when the creativity hits, it's life-changing in the moment. I'm in such a creative period right now, and I have a friend of mine, a songwriting friend, who sent me 2 pieces of music last night. And I think I can compare this to when the idea for a story, or maybe a different chapter in my book, when it just falls into my head. So I get these 2 pieces of music yesterday, and I'm like, this is going to be great.
Wow.
And I hope I can keep that feeling, because I'm going to write after I do all the post-production on this writing session.
Kick me out so you can get on with it.
But it's just such a good feeling when that inspiration hits. Was that a gradual process when it comes to the Hall of the Mountain King, or did you have to work on what kind of story you wanted to write, or was it that lightning inspiration?
I don't know how you are as a writer. Some people hear a voice and they feel they need to write that. I'm not like that. I'm visual.
I'm very visual.
Yeah. So I'll see scenes.
Yes.
And I think usually before I start, I'll have maybe 2 or 3 scenes. And I had 2 scenes, if you want to say for sort of inspiration. One was a young girl sitting next to Grieg at the piano. I didn't know anything apart from the fact that she couldn't talk, and I didn't know why she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
And there's another scene where Grieg and her are at the top of a mountain, and the sky is just full of the northern lights.
Yeah.
And it's cold and snowy, and they're there together, and she still can't talk, and I didn't know why. And so I knew I had to get to those scenes. I didn't know where, when, how, whatever. So that had to be filled in. And that was kind of there, and that sort of was hanging around in my mind for quite a long time. But then at some point I saw the concert pianist James Rhodes play the whole of the Mountain King on piano.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away.
Yeah.
He was plonking so hard,
Yeah.
you couldn't see his fingers. It was just a blur, and it was still making the noise.
Yeah.
It was still making this beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And when I saw him play, that inspired me to start writing. So I think one art influences another. And
isn't that so cool and so interesting and mysterious how that happens?
yeah, yeah,
The one art medium feeds into the other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so it wasn't until I saw him playing it that I think the same day I started writing.
That's such a good feeling. And I think a good artist is open to those spontaneous moments of inspiration. Mm-hmm. It could be, everybody talks about how horrible TV is, and don't watch CNN and things like that. But sometimes I'll hear a news commentator say something, and it's not necessarily that what he or she said was deep, but the subject around which they are speaking is so deep. Mm-hmm. And there's a song in that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm a great artist, but I am always open for that spontaneous inspiration. And it's usually a visual thing. Mm-hmm. Pictures will start coming up in my head, and I just put it onto words, and hopefully it works itself out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very mysterious process.
Do you have a next book in mind already, or are you still immersed in your current project? I mean, it's not even released yet, but sometimes you'll hear, I know this happens in music, by the time an album is released, the next album is halfway written. Yeah,
that's exactly the way. I mean, given that I finished this 3 years ago, I have another novel that's currently out with publishers, and I've started writing another one now. So, and this one is set in 1030 at the end of the Viking era. So
hello research. Hello research.
Exactly. And honestly, for the first time ever since living in Norway, I'm quite looking forward to the winter so that I can just really get into the research and huddle in and start getting on with it.
Well, it's certainly fascinating to dig into. I did one of my earlier podcast episodes was with a guy, Andreas, who there's an ancient Viking wrestling sport called Gimle.
Oh, right, is there?
And, they'll wear like a kilt type of thing, bare-chested, and they'll wrestle, trying to break arms and whatnot, but it's all in fun. Yeah. and he's also very much into, all things Viking. Right. In quite the positive sense, and how it applies, or how it should apply or could apply socially today. The moralistic, people, when they think of Vikings, they think of just the raping and the pillaging. Well, there was actually a moral structure to that, a very rigid moral structure. I
think
fascinating.
Very effective sort of society, and women had much more of a say than they, it worked.
Yeah, it did. Well, we're here today because it worked. Sometimes I wish it didn't work so well with that. No, my wife, she's a tiny little thing, but she sure is tough. Aww. She's quite the Viking. Oh, is she? You're going to meet her afterwards.
I look forward to meeting her. Yeah, she sounds amazing.
Now, you say you are a lover of music. What kind of music do you prefer? Besides Grieg?
Anything and everything. Well, I wasn't even a massive Grieg fan or anything like that, but when I got into that did move me quite a lot. But anything and everything. I mean, probably with the exception of like extreme thrash metal, I could probably listen to pretty much anything and love it.
I've never been able to get in. Now, I like Metallica.
Right.
But there's for me, a recognizable musical structure in that kind of metal. Mm-hmm. But this Norwegian black metal, I just can't, I don't, it's almost like a constant droning. Now here I am losing all of my Norwegian black metal fans, all two of them. But it sounds like a droning, it's just like a droning note with a lot of staccato,
sort of like
not even rhythm.
It's like a pre-vomit sort of throw.
Yeah, I genuinely struggle, and I've tried for years, off and on, to connect with the musicality of that. I can't do it.
Sorry as well.
I just can't do it. But beyond that, I like all types of music. I wrote a country album.
Did you?
For a friend of mine, which was probably the biggest musical stretch I've ever done.
Wow.
And I want to apply that to my writing. Now here I am thinking forward. I'm not even finished with my first book, but I want to be an author who writes in different styles because I like writing and performing music in different styles. I never thought I would write a country album. I didn't like, I never disliked country music, but I wasn't a country music fan. Somebody asked me to write that album. I'm like, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So I want to apply that same sense of challenge seeking to my writing. Can you see yourself stepping outside and into a new genre?
I can see myself possibly writing some non-fiction, maybe.
Do you think it'll hurt you? Because again, the experts are so preoccupied with genre. How are we going to market?
It depends.
How is Lisa Strømme going to be marketed? What kind of a writer is she? Is she,
I have started a book about creativity and the creative process and writing and things like that. I'd quite like to finish that at some point. But in terms of genre in fiction, I can't imagine ever moving out of my genre because I love it so much. Historical fiction for me is the only thing I will ever write because contemporary stuff just doesn't do anything for me. So I'm a complete, I call myself like an obsessive compulsive historian. It's part of my soul.
Well, you know what I like about your style of writing, and again, I've only seen the first 3 chapters, but knowing that it has a historical context, I like the idea of being entertained while I'm also learning something.
Yeah.
You know? There's something about that style of about your style of writing that stimulates the desire to learn something. I might pick up, well, we don't pick up history books, don't we? We Google things now. I might Google a reference. I might get curious about a certain aspect of Grieg, or the Peer Gynt story, and I might jump on Google and explore it and learn a little something, which may lead to something else. That's very attractive in your style of writing.
That's nice to know.
Yeah, hats off to you for that.
Thanks.
It's and again, I've only seen read the first 3 chapters. Let me hold this up again for the camera.
Spot the troll.
Spot the troll. Do you see the troll? No, not me. Let me hold it off. Do you see the Oh, self-depreciation. No, but it's there's something about it that makes me want to jump further into it and learn. It's that historical reference that stimulates that brain that wants to learn more knowledge.
Well, that's the kind of thing that stimulates me, so I read what I want to write.
So do you enjoy the research process?
Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's probably not even work to you. If you have a genuine curiosity for history, it's not work.
It's fantastic.
You're just feeding your own desire.
Yeah. And I mean, like when I was researching Munch, that was just fabulous. Going to all these places where he was and his paintings.
I would, and I call Munch my favorite Norwegian artist, but I'm really lacking in knowledge about his personal life. I want to see what I can find out about what kind of person he was.
Troubled.
Yeah. I've gathered that much, but I don't know. I have this morbid curiosity. I want to know how troubled was he.
Yeah.
And then it will give me a better understanding of how it manifested itself in his work, because it obviously did. Look at Scream,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, he was very anxious, and he'd suffered from losses when he was younger,
yeah.
his mother and his sister, and he himself was very, very ill. And I think this is the reason why he was so prolific, is that he had come very close to death.
Yeah.
And he knew what that was like. And he knew when he survived that I just have to devote myself to my art.
Yeah. The troubled artist.
Very much, yeah.
Are you anything of a troubled artist? I mean, you're very happy right now.
Yeah.
Wonderful, charming smile, beautiful writings, but most of us, I think didn't you say something along the lines of we're I don't want to misquote you, but didn't you say something a few minutes ago when I was talking about having lost my son, that we put a certain amount of our feelings, our emotions and experiences into our work? How does that manifest, or does it manifest itself in your writing?
I mean, it obviously does, because you can't
We are who we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you see.
We don't write or create to hide things about ourselves. Isn't there some part of you that wants to share certain aspects of yourself, of who you are, of what made you?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes out unconsciously, and I think
they
say you can see a writer's DNA from their collective pieces of work.
It's quite true.
Yeah, and so I think it just comes out that way anyway, because I'm a creative person. I like art. I like music.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the emotional makeup of human beings and why we do the things we do.
Yeah.
I'm very emotional. Like I said, I love deeply.
Yeah.
And so it must just come out without me really thinking about it.
So there's no conscious effort to neither expose it or hide it.
No.
You just write and you're aware of, there's parts of me
There
in
could
there.
be me in there. I'm not aware of it coming out. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a different like I say, I'm doing a memoir of sorts, so I'm writing about my own experiences, starting from as far back as I can remember. That's pretty personal. So I guess I'm looking at my writing from a totally different perspective.
But I think there's still a layer, because you're writing, you're not just sitting chatting about your life. I think
true,
you will probably be trying to make your writing good. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So you will write differently to the way you speak to me now. There'll be some sort of refinement, some sort of layer in between your immediate memory and emotion and what's
That's a
on the
good
page.
point. That's a good point.
There'll be something that comes in between. So it would be slightly different, but at the same time, you are still exposing yourself.
Now, I'm going to spend some time later thinking on that. What is the masking? What is the layering? How is this writing process different from myself and how I'm speaking to you now? I've never really contemplated that before, but now I am, based on what you said just now.
I think it slows you down anyway. Like before you think and commit something to the page, there's a process that filters you more than just chatting and talking.
Well, yeah. It's not like you just flip a switch and you sit down and you write The Hall of the Mountain King. Yeah. Right? Or
No, certainly not. And that's not a memoir.
Oh gosh.
I don't remember as far back as 1875.
No. You'd be
I'm old. I'm not that old.
No, but it's I do see what you're saying, but that is an aspect of the writing process that I never thought of. How filtered is this stuff that I'm writing on my iPad? How filtered is that?
I think for a memoir, it's probably you're not conscious of it. I'm much more conscious of it as a fiction writer. Because
as you should be, yeah, because you have to paint a picture that's more, I think I'm allowed a certain amount of selfishness writing a memoir. Mm-hmm. It's kind of for me too,
Yeah.
Whereas as you write in your process, you have to think of the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also working a craft. I want my craft to be better and better all the time. I want to write beautiful words. I want things to sound nice and look nice, and that's not the same as just talking.
That's true. Yeah. Although talking is an art. Talking is an art in itself. It's I think there's an art aspect when I sit and speak with, and they don't have to be an artist sitting there. They can be an academic. But I think there is a certain poetry that can be observed through conversation. I love conversational podcasts. I could sit and watch or listen to those all day if I didn't have other things to do.
Yeah, me too.
There's poetry. There's an ebb and flow, a push and pull. Mm-hmm. I love the facial expressions when profound things are said. There's a beauty, there's an art in that's captured on the microphone and on film. I love it. Yeah. It's another form of expression.
Yeah, I think all communicators, people who express things as for a living, do that as their job, and find all of that kind of stuff fascinating.
Yeah. How much time do you put into writing every day? Do you have a schedule?
I do. I write from 9 till 1.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah. 9 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a word count, or do you just sit from 9 to 1 and you get done what you get done in that time period? Yeah.
That's what I do.
I started off with a word count. I have to get 1,000 words a day. And that's not the way to go. So I just...
It's not very organic.
Yeah, but I haven't gotten to the point where I can say from this hour to that hour is my writing period. Mm-hmm. I'll kind of figure it out the evening before, okay, tomorrow I know I have these family things to do and this, that, and the other. I have a podcast to produce or whatever. So I'm going to write for 2 hours, and here's when I'm going to do it. But what I found is that may not be the way to go, because in a way I'm under prioritizing my writing, and I shouldn't be doing that. I should be prioritizing that.
Yeah, I think you have to find a balance. I mean, in my early days, I think after The Strawberry Girl came out, I thought, right, I'm a writer now, therefore I have to do the stereotypical thing that a writer does, and write from first thing in the morning to last thing at night, and then in the evening, and just, and I did do that, and I hammered myself into the ground.
Yeah.
I lost my health, my family, I didn't see them anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Stephen King put it very well. I saw an interview with him on YouTube a few weeks ago, and he said, you can't force yourself to be something you're not. And he directly referenced that stereotypical thing of the wrinkled forehead of the artist hunched over his desk all day long and excluding everything.
Yeah.
You can do that, but you're not going to enjoy your writing process. No. So he has compressed his writing time into certain hours of the day, from the morning until the late morning. He doesn't even write into the afternoon, he says, because you have to live life. It's that living of life that will stimulate your writing.
You definitely do. And you have to move your body, and you
have
to...
Oh, yes.
Get out and see the world and talk to people. And
I've gotten some of the best ideas for segments of this book I'm working on when I've been out doing something else.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. I have to stop and scramble for my phone and put that idea down, a certain thing that I remembered from my childhood that I hadn't thought of in years. And
I know, that's why I walk as well. I think something happens in our brains when you shift and you start moving.
I'll be out in my gym, out in the garage here, and idea after idea, whether it's for new music or for this book, just fall into my head as I'm out there training. Yeah. So it's that physical. For me, it's the physical movement that stimulates to thought. If I sit down and say, okay, now I'm going to force out some writing.
No, it doesn't work.
No.
Actually, I remember in this book, Hall of the Mountain King, I'd got up when I'd finished writing one day, and in the scene, it was the middle of the night, Dagny's walking up towards the church door is open, and someone's in there. I didn't know who the hell was in there. I didn't know. And I went for a walk with my dog, and about halfway around that walk, now I know who's in there.
Then it falls in.
Yeah.
Sometimes that distance will stimulate to some new thoughts of creativity.
Yeah. And sometimes in a story you don't know exactly where you're going, and your characters will take you somewhere that you really weren't expecting, and you have to then get them out of it.
Yeah. This is such a beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Who's the person who...
This is a designer called Jason Anscombe who lives in England, and I got in touch with him through a website called Readsy, which you might want to check out for yourself.
What's it called?
Readsy.
Readsy,
and it's a resource for writers, so they basically hook up designers with writers, editors with writers.
I see.
So you can find the resources, people that you need there.
I'm going to write that down because that... Read and then... Z-Y or
S-Y.
S-Y? I'm assuming it's .com.
Yeah.
Readsy.com. And can you spell the last name of the artist? I have a lot of creatives watching, so let's put this guy's name out there.
It's Jason. I think it's on the inside. It's A-N-S-C-O-M-B. A-N-S-C-O-M-B.
Check him out, everybody. If you need somebody to do some work on your project, check him out.
Oh, that's nice.
There we go, Jason. Yeah. It's on the inside. And you people will see that it's on the inside because you're going to buy this book. See, I'm helping you out here. See, this is what we do here on Coming Home with John Allen. No, this is, it's very well put together. The cover pulls you in, and I think that's important. I don't think you can have, because so many people are stimulated by the visual, you cannot have a boring cover.
No, and there's a lot that goes into that because, again, genre. And also you've got to think about...
There's a psychological thing about a book cover.
Yeah.
It literally pulls you into the book. Yeah.
You also have to think about nowadays, most people see it as a thumbnail on a screen.
Yes.
So you have to think about what's going to work at
what's
that size.
What's going to catch their eye at that size. That's a good point. I'm so... eager to challenge myself that I'm going to try and make my own book cover.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm quietly into digital art over the last 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, and the ideas just keep flowing. So
that's great. Again,
I'm going to try
control, because nobody can quite ever interpret what you're thinking.
Well, I've been accused by friends of being way too insecure, but I'm very protective of my art when it's in the creative process. Of course, when I put it out there, I want everybody to love it. Mm-hmm. But until then, I'm very quiet and careful, and I just don't want too many people putting their fingers into it. And that's the main reason why I'm self-publishing. I don't want to have to coordinate with other people for something that I'm trying to create.
If you spoke to Jason, you'd probably say Lisa was the worst client I've ever had in my life, because I was
kind of
just
picky. Was it kind
of, can we make that just a bit brighter? Can we move this? That's not quite,
I'm sure he understood. He knows this is
that's his job.
Yeah,
but I was probably particularly annoying. But
well, you were annoying to the proper degree, because this is a great cover.
I wanted to get it the highest quality I possibly could without it being published by litho publishing, printing, the traditional way. And I'm proud of that. I think we did a good job. I'm
also going to have interior art.
Oh,
each chapter is going to have.
Are you going to have photographs as well? Or?
No photographs. No. All drawn.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to have some fun with that. It's actually slowing the process down quite a bit. If I hadn't gotten the idea to put drawings internally inside the book, I probably would have been done writing by now. Mm-hmm. But I can write a chapter and get an idea for the drawing and then knock it out real quick. But then there might be several days of editing that drawing so that it fits.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's like
this is a really big project that you're working on.
Well, it is, but it's fun. It's occupying a part of my mind that needs to be occupied. And again, there's a therapeutic process too.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, listen, we've been talking for an hour and 17 minutes, talking about art, talking about life.
Oh my God.
Talking about coming to Norway. We kind of got off track. I wanted to know more about your journey here to Norway. But let's save that for the next time you come.
Part 2.
I have a lot of guests who have been here several times over. So when I've invited someone in, I mean, you've got the full thumbs up and my door is always open. So when your next book comes, you want to talk about it, I'm here.
Oh,
if you have any, if you want a halfway decent cup of coffee and we can talk on the microphone during that, the door is always open.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
I'm so glad that I met you. And again, it's all Jeff Wasserman's fault.
Likewise.
Stop being such a nice guy, Jeff.
It's all your fault. Yeah.
But as we wind this up, I want to ask you, I have my guests do 2 things for me.
No, I'd forgotten about this. Yeah.
2 things here. You probably saw this when you watched the episode with Jeff. Like I told you before, like I tell everyone who comes here, I invite you here because I see something in you that charms me, that motivates me, that inspires me. I feel like I can learn things from you, and that's why I invited you. So I'm quite fortunate that you said yes to my invitation. So thank you for coming.
Lovely. Thank you.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to say 3 words, and then I would like you to please finish the sentence.
I'm actually nervous.
You should be.
Yeah.
No.
Suddenly, for the first time since I came here, no.
It's funny. Everybody always kind of stiffens up, and maybe they'll take a sip of coffee when I get to this point. They can tell something big is coming, and it's kind of big because this demands a little bit of introspection, and introspection can be challenging and can be uncomfortable. But let me say these 3 words. You finish the sentence. You ready? Lisa Strømme is. Ooh.
Yeah.
I have my ideas of who and what Lisa Strømme is, but what do you say? Lisa Strømme is.
I think I would have to say a million different things packed into one soul, just like you.
You threw it right back at me, huh? John Allen is. Okay.
We're all so many things. I don't think
aren't we though?
Yeah, I don't think you can put it down to I am that. You know?
You have totally deconstructed a difficult question by saying how simply difficult it is.
Yeah.
It's a simply difficult and complex thing, but it's simple. We are who and what we are. Aren't we the sum of our experiences? Isn't a part of you and I this conversation, going forward?
Yeah. We're the sum of our childhoods, our genetic makeup, the influences on us, the things we read, every book we've read, every film we've seen, everything we've been exposed to. Yeah. Yet ultimately, we're all the same. And we all want the same thing. I
think that is so important, and I think that's something that is being neglected. That phrase, "we're all the same," or "we want the same things." I think that's being neglected in today's dialogue. Not today's, but in the dialogue of the day, in the greater society, both in Norway, also back in the UK, and maybe especially in the USA. We forget that we are the same and we all want the same things.
Basically, we want to be loved. We want to look after our kids, our family. We want a decent life. We all want that. Wherever you go in the world, I think what also is neglected is we need to remember that 99.9% of people are wonderful, lovely, happy, great people.
I think my life has a certain, I've had my ups and downs, but I think there has been a peaceful thread in my life because I always assume, I don't hope, but I assume that everybody is good. I start there. Let them prove me wrong,
Yeah.
I'm not naive. My eyes are open.
No, of course.
But I'm going to assume when I first meet you that you're good. Because that's usually the case. Most people are good. I have a friend. I have to shout out to my friend. Henning Remme wrote a song called "Most People Are Good."
Oh.
Go check it out on Spotify, iTunes. Most People Are Good. Yeah. Beautiful instrumental song. Yeah. He's a guitarist. And it's true. It's the truth. Most people are good. So I start there.
No, I like if you're traveling, you get into a bit of trouble, you ask someone for help. Most people help you.
Some people are serial killers.
I know that. And, this is why I mainly just stay in my home for most of my
Avoid serial killers by just staying at home.
Yeah.
No, but most people are good. And I believe, you see it on social media a lot. If you're on social media a lot, you see people talking about how horrible the world is. Oh, it's just a big piss pot. Yeah. Excuse the language. But people say that and worse about the state of the world today. But I can't get in line with that. When I feel that most people are good, how can I say that the world is so bad? Of course there's bad. There's a lot of bad things going on. But I do believe there's more good in the world than bad. Am I naive?
No, I completely agree with you. And I think it's I've had times in my life where and recently in February this year with what happened in Ukraine, my son was freshly out of his year in the military. And my creative mind went to worst case scenario. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's going to be World War III. My son's going to have to go back into the army and he's going to have to start fighting. And I actually was almost crippled by it and didn't want to leave my house. And I think a lot of people felt that way too.
It's a scary thing happening there in Ukraine. I don't know if you saw, I don't know how much you keep up with the daily news, but did you see Putin's speech a 3 days ago?
No, I've had to switch it off, otherwise I get too.
That's probably the smartest thing to do. And if there's a downside to me doing this program, it's that I kind of have to stay plugged in for those guests who come in who want to talk about social or political things.
But is this the nuclear threat?
Well, he talked about nuclear armaments in a way that was, he's a creepy guy, but it was a little extra scary the way he talked about it in the speech that he gave a few days ago. And now he's mobilized a semi-mobilization. I think he's looking to bring in, what they say, 300,000 more soldiers and whatnot. And it's just this escalating of something that we can hardly imagine that it can be worse than what it is. And yet here it is being escalated. And then you have children who are at that age where if it touches Norway, all of a sudden,
well, that was the thing because
they're involved.
We border with Russia.
Isn't that's a little scary?
Yeah,
we have our home and a lot of friends and family up there in Finnmark, and it's right next to it. Yeah.
And And I think because Christopher had been in the military, it just brought home to me, I mean, that was the year national service, but you know, for the people that do have kids in the military.
Our daughter just got her letter yesterday.
Oh, did she? Is she going to go?
Well, you know, I have to admit, I'm not all that familiar. I mean, I have my military background from the States, U.S. Marines.
Right.
So I don't really know how that works here, but she did get her letter.
She can sort of choose. She can say, they'll ask her, how much do you want to do this? So she can go, I don't really want to do this. And there's so many that do want to that she'll probably be kind of like.
I think she's leaning, without putting her personal life out there, I think she's leaning towards not wanting to do very much.
My daughter didn't want to do it either. No.
She's, I always tell my daughter, our daughter and our son, they can do whatever they want, but it must have a stable income, because when I get old, I'm going to be very expensive for my kids. Adult diapers and the demands that I'm going to put on them as an old man. So do what you want, but it better be lucrative, because I'm expensive, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
but I do believe, we digress a little bit, but I do believe that there's more good in the world out there than there is bad. Not to be naive about what is bad, because there are bad things, and I do believe that most people are good.
Well, also there's that feeling of what can I do about it? What can I personally do about it on my own? And the answer is you can't. There's nothing you can do to stop Putin from doing what he's doing yourself individually. So how am I then going to feel better about myself and feel that I am in some way contributing? Does it mean going to help refugees? What can I do? And I think it's to focus more on the individual things that you can do. Otherwise, you get so overwhelmed by the world.
Oh, overwhelmed by the world. There's a song.
Yeah, that's a good album cover, album title, I think. Yeah. That, you know, you become so anxious and so overwhelmed and so.
So you've kind of just.
I had to
removed yourself from that daily influx of
because I'm so empathic. I feel so deeply for people. I can't bear to watch the news because it's just so harrowing. I mean, in the beginning, seeing babies being passed onto trains to get out of there. I mean, I couldn't believe I was witnessing that, and it wasn't like 1939, you know.
Well, that's the thing. It's brought that ugly history from 70, 75 years ago, and it's put it in our lap today.
Unbelievable.
And I have to say, I know I'm reacting to it differently because I'm here in Norway and not back at home in the USA.
Yeah.
One thing I'm doing, and again, I'm fortunate to be able to work with some good musicians. My friend Henning and I are working on a project. We don't know how many songs it's going to be, but it's going to be an album. We might even have a video/television element to this, but we're writing about war in general, inspired by, if there's inspiration to be found in the situation in Ukraine. He came up with the idea, and he had a block of songs and challenged me to or invited me to put lyrics on it. So it's this feeling of, you know, and we don't know how it's going to contribute. We may try to combine it with some kind of charity thing or something, but it's our little thing that we're doing to get involved. Yeah. So that should be coming out relatively soon.
That's great. I mean, that's if you're actively doing something and creating something and you're making some sort of difference.
Yeah, and maybe in the scope of things, it's not going to be that much of a difference, but it makes me
doesn't matter.
Feel
that's
good.
what I mean.
Can I be selfish a little bit and feel good because I'm doing this in the hopes that it could possibly someday maybe be applied to some sort of charity movement that can do something. Yeah,
that's much better than sitting here and not leaving your home because you're crippled with fear and overwhelmed by the awful things you're seeing on the news.
Exactly. Again, art is a therapeutic thing for me, very much so. Okay, so the second thing I need you to do, now I asked you, I did the 3-sentence thing, or the 3-word thing.
I'm not finised with the scary stuff. There's another one.
One more thing, and this is the last thing before we finish. And again, thank you so much for being here. I feel like I'm a better person now that I've gotten to know you. You've added something to my life. I think you're quite, this.
Here we go.
And I'm going to go back and read the other things that you've put out there, but this is quality work. I can tell already just from looking at the first 3 chapters that I was able to get. So I want to tell everybody again, The Hall of the Mountain King, beautiful cover. The first 3 chapters are fantastic, and I know it's going to pull you in. One thing I have to complain about, I need glasses. I don't have them, but I need them.
So do I. it feel small to you?
Couldn't it? It's
Does
just
it? Yeah.
A little bit, maybe.
What we did was we matched
I'm
it.
just
No,
teasing.
I'm totally. I can't see a thing. I've got lenses in today. We matched it exactly to the paperback of the Strawberry Girl. So
Okay.
that was the
smart.
model I went on.
Brand recognition.
Yeah.
Somebody in an office somewhere with your publisher.
Trying to keep them all similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah.
No, but it's this is a lovely piece of work. I know it already, and I can't wait to jump into it. I'm going to start on it already tonight.
Oh, that's so nice, John. Thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve all the success in the world, and I believe that success is going to manifest itself in many ways going forward. I just know it. I know it. I know things, okay? But here's the last thing I would like to ask of you. Again, back to this thing about you being someone who motivates me, inspires me, and I feel that I can learn things from you. I feel that you can easily do that for my guests, for my listeners and my viewers, by saying something that they can carry with them as they listen to these last minutes of this episode. Can you say something to motivate people as they walk through this thing called life with all of its challenges? Again, more beauty than evil, but the evil is out there. It is a distracting factor. Is there something you can say to help people get through it?
Ooh.
I think there is something you can say.
I hope you're not expecting something really profound and like.
we're all. No, I believe that you can be a source of inspiration for people, especially for creators, with you being the creator that you are.
Just from what I've learned and my own experiences, I would say absolutely all the time, 100% unapologetically express your own unique individuality. Hold on to that.
And you meant that. You said absolutely 100% unapologetically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can carry you through. If you spend your life trying to be someone else, that's not going to work. If you spend your life being very insecure about who you actually are, that's not going to work. Until you can just sort of stand in who you are and express that, especially creatively, then that's the only time, once you've figured that out and you just go for it.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people, I'm sorry to say this, couldn't give a shit. It's like you spend so much time worrying. Is this going to be all right? Will people like it? Will people, half the time people, they don't have an opinion, that's it. So you can stop yourself from doing almost anything by beating yourself up, questioning yourself, imposter syndrome, all of those things for years.
Yeah. Case in point, like I say, over 10, 12 years, I had so many starts and stops to this book project because often I was wondering, well, what are people going to think?
Yep.
Who's John Allen think he is? Who wants to hear that story?
Yeah. Call yourself a writer.
Right. Well, and the answer is I want to hear that story.
Yeah.
So once I've written it, I've already won. And then if other people can get into it and get something out of it, all the better.
And they will.
And I hope so.
They will.
I hope so. Well, you said it, and I said I respect you and I'm inspired, so you must be right then.
I know that in the same way as you know that.
Well, that's right back at me, huh?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm so glad that you're here. I want to wish you luck going forward, but will you give me updates?
Oh, yeah.
Will you let me know how
will.
it's going? Now, you're going to have is it a book signing?
I'm having an online book launch, which you're very welcome to come to. And so is anybody else listening to this.
How do we find it?
You can find that. I'll put it on my website after this, but it's currently on Facebook and on my Facebook page. In fact, it's on in my author Facebook page too, so you'll find it there.
I'll link to that in the episode description so you guys can find it very easily. And thank goodness for the wonders of the internet that you can do this online.
If you link to that Facebook link that sends them to, you can basically put your email in and come along. It's a Zoom call, really easy.
Yeah. And
when you do that, you get the chance to win a free signed copy of the book.
Oh, did you sign this one?
I did. I wrote you a little note in there, John.
Did you? Okay, well, all right. Well, I have to dig through it then.
I'm hoping I'll find someone one day that will just let me draw all over it and deface it and do flowers. Because I feel so nervous that I'm spoiling it in some way by writing.
Well, this again, I wish you all the luck going forward.
You.
I'm going to be there for the Zoom call,
That'd be fantastic.
and people take advantage of the simplicity of the internet and Zoom. Get in on this, get involved. Is it a little daunting at times to think that you're creating a following?
Is there anyone out there?
Yeah. Well, but there comes a certain amount of responsibility with that. You know, you kind of have to continue because there's people waiting for you to create more. Yeah. How does that feel?
Well, having had the experience I've had where I've waited and waited and waited, I think it's just lovely that there are people there that I can talk to and build a relationship with, because that's what this is all about. You know, it's not about money and books. It's about
the connections,
me and you,
the relationships.
And I love all of that. What I really don't enjoy is the social media tech aspect of it, you know.
Do you have someone who does that for you? Or are you hands-on with all of that?
I'm looking to recruit someone to do that now because
it's a big job.
It is. It's a 24 hours a day job. I
lost all of my Meta accounts, Facebook and Instagram, and in a way it was a blessing because when it was gone and I couldn't do it I got hacked. That's what happened. And my immediate reaction was, well, doggone it, this sucks. But almost right away, I started to realize how simple life was that I didn't have to.
Yeah, you didn't have
Now,
it.
of course, it hurt me when it comes to marketing, and now I've got to build my audience back. It's not easy to find, you know, of course, friends and family. I've found them on Facebook and Instagram. But some of the other people who are a little bit more distant, you can't just remember everyone's.
No, this is why they say that your email
community
is the most important thing, because then it doesn't matter what happens on social media.
Yeah, and that I believe is going to be a great benefit of me putting the subscription out to me reading each chapter, because I'll be gathering email address and building an audience.
But even that, to actually give away your email address and to actually commit to something, people are terrified of doing that.
They are. So we have to build trust.
For the Zoom call, just come. It's just me. I'm not scary. I'm not going to abuse you. I'm not going to spam you. I haven't got the energy to spam people.
No.
I couldn't write more than one email to people a month.
Yeah, I was going to say your newsletter is basically once a month, right? And in a lot of ways, once a month is pretty good because you're not bothering people, but you have that one time every month to update them on everything interesting that you've been doing. Exactly. So, you know, my subscription, you know, will be once a week for the reading, but the newsletter once a month. Yeah. But of course, we want as many people to opt into that. And it is simple. It's just giving your email address. And we'll take the responsibility as the creators to remind you that we're here by sending you that content once a month. Yeah. You know, so I have learned the power of having my own platform. I will never again rely on another platform. I need to own that platform. I can't have this happen to me again. Yeah,
you want direct conversation with people who are interested in what you're doing. You don't want the algorithms.
Damn those algorithms. Yeah. Oof, down with algorithms. Down with
it. I call them malgorithms.
Thank you. That's even better.
They've got some bad kind of intent.
Well, let's just wind it off by saying that this has lifted me up.
Oh, me too.
I'm motivated. I'm going to write a little bit better now because of this.
I'm going to go and write some more.
And everybody who is a creator out there, if you've got that creative spirit, don't let go of that. There's a lot of things out there. Now I'm talking to you directly in the camera. There's a lot of things out there that can pull you away from that creative source. If you let it, you don't have to let that happen. Tap into the joy that you get from creating and keep creating. Right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
It's not simple. It's not easy, but it is easy and it is simple. It's both. Just do it. Keep creating. All right. Lisa, thanks again. I think I've said thank you 1,000 times.
Me too. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
I want to also thank you for listening and watching. Remember, in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast platform, you'll see several links where you can connect with Lisa on her Facebook page and on her webpage. And there's several links where you can connect with me on my webpage and contribute to help support the work that I do. I really appreciate it. Go out there and be loved in return, and enjoy the process. Bye now.